Welcome back to the channel. This is the next episode on the Toyota Celica build where we put a T205 Four drivetrain into an T230 Celica.
So these things always seem very simple, but even if you make it easier yourself and try to use a square profile, like in this case, it's always a little bit difficult to get the right angle. Here you can see that this piece is under two different angles cut. That's where it's gonna sit, right over there, connecting this subframe pickup point to the chassis rail over there. We measured the thickness of this rail and it's thick enough for us to directly weld on. If it would be thinner, we would probably weld a 3mm piece on it. So we want to connect these two pickup points to the chassis rails because this is just underbody floor, 0.8mm thick. So we welded the plate in there. Very difficult to weld. Like you may say, like, hey, I can weld a lot cleaner than that, but this is like almost nothing. It's very difficult to weld a plate on there. So we're going to connect those two things to the roll cage on top, and we're going to connect them to those two boxes that you just seen to the frame rail.
And that's the piece tack welded in. Now it seems like super simple, but I think I test fitted it and measured it about 3 or 4 times. So before both sides are made to fit and welded in and everything, it takes you quite some time.
Creating a little section here that's going to help us to connect the next part of the front subframe. And there we've made this section. As you can see, it sits over there. We'll hammer that into place. And it's going to sit here on the chassis rail, just like that. And there's the other side. And that's what it looks like welded. As you can see, we also welded this bushing here on the inside. These little lips are going to be tapped upwards. Here you can see that it's fitting nicely over there everywhere. Zooming in with the camera, but it's a really tiny piece. It's like the size of your fist. There you can see the bushing that we machined, which is super deep. That's like 6 centimeters or something. So that's what it's going to be like. And there we have the section welded in. This stuff is not very easy to weld. Over there you can see where these transitions are. There's a lot of material in between over there. And bond over some stuff, and that burns up into your weld, so you need to be very careful. So like right over there, but this is like compared to my finger, look at how much we're nitpicking. So this is very good. It's very good penetration for as long as it's possible with welding on such thin material. So I'm kind of happy with that. There's the subframe on the floor. You can see that we are now able to weld the rest of this, and we're making a little box section over here. So we're boxing in that piece, front cross member. As you can see, we put those ears over there. We're gonna close off that, of course. Yeah. Here's the passenger side engine mount. Normally there's a hole over here that hosts it. That's the second one. We moved the whole thing to the side. We made some space over here, and we made a hole over there because it needs to sit absolutely flat. We're going to weld that in there. The second point is over here, and then that should totally hold the engine mount. We created some space over here. It looks like nothing, but if you look closely you can see that it's about 8mm that we gained over there. Lower part is untouched because this is very thin. It becomes very thin at this point because this is where the front wheel starts to get close to the chassis. So over here the chassis seems really thick, but in this section it becomes super narrow. And that's what it looks like when it's finished. You can see over there that we finished up on those mounting points as well. extra point there, welded in. We used a 2-wheel drive mount and a 4-wheel drive mount, and we kind of put it together, turned it into one mount, because this piece sits on the motor. There's not much you can change about that. And there's a little peek of the result. There we have the 3 points that we made on this car. Here's one that we changed. There you can see how we altered for the motor mount. And here's the plate basically connecting that whole piece. There you can see that we changed the mounts for the steering rack, but we also retained the original mounts. This is not the correct steering rack for this car. The only thing is that it's impossible to find the one that we need, because they're all made right-hand drive. So I kind of made this steering rack work, and if we ever find the correct one left-hand drive, you can see that there are still holes there left, and we can mount that one up in there. Geometry wise, this one should work. It wasn't super easy to fit it to the rest of the car, but it seems to do the job. And there you can see the other mounting points that we made. As you can see, when we were showing it without the subframe, it looked really weird, but now you can see why it's made the way it's made. So again, you don't want to take any risk with these things because you cannot calculate it, so you overbuild it just to be sure. And here's that super strut I've been telling you guys about. As you can see, the McPherson leg doesn't sit on the, technically not McPherson, because it's not like one piece with the hub. So the hub is actually loose from the strut. It connects over there, and here the hub connects. This is spring loaded, so that moves. So that's connected to that arm, which should help a lot with torque steer. It's actually very, very complicated, because all these arms, they move in relation to each other when you steer the car. But apparently it works really well. It's devised from rallying, and it should really work with high power applications on front-wheel drive cars.
Don't forget to take a look at our website as well, einzel.nl. We ship worldwide, of course, Wisefab, Feal Suspension, our own brand Einzel, gearboxes, quick change differentials, axles, all kinds of things. A lot of fabrication components, of course, air jacks, subframes for quick change, you name it. Drop us an email and we'll hook you up.
There you have it. That's the 4 subframes successfully mated to this Celica chassis. As I said before, it comes to life when you start putting it together. And you can see, so here's where the chassis rail sits on the model where the subframe came from. So we had to connect that to that subframe. You see the steering rack over here is a huge cavity because it needs to take the 4x4 transmission as well in between. And here you can see that we welded the extra reinforcements. We're going to connect that tube to the cage inside the car. But yeah, that's it. And that's how the longitudinal subframe, so this is basically what holds the engine in place. And there's the member installed.